Part 31. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 303. Chi-Heiran painted his exposed skin sallow, and stood with Fei-Bai at the foot of the mountain outside Zayahua city, like two disaster victims who were forced to run away from home. Wrapped in a baggy beggar's clothes, no one can see that he is strong, but Fei-Bai has always been thin and small. Although he is 2 years older than Chi-Heiran, he looks similar. He is dressed in tatters and smells like a beggar. The clothes were 1 foot deep and the other shallow, and followed Chi-Heiran. It's not that he doesn't want to walk normally, but that the shoes on his feet are torn, and the sole of his left foot is a bit damaged. Whenever he walks, it's like stepping on the ground with bare feet. There are a lot of gravel on the ground, which is too painful. The two walked into the mountain without saying a word, and at noon they dug some grass stems from the ground and stuffed them into their mouths to chew. In the evening, Fei-Bai spread his feet and hands on the grass, looking at the white clouds passing by in the sky through the gaps in the leaves. He thought he would be the next white cloud to go away. Didn't eat anything, if those grass stalks counted. Fei-Bai turned his head and glanced at his young master. Seeing that he was digging up grass stalks hard, he wanted to cry without tears. When did the young master like eating these things so much? Chi-Heiran remained even more silent. After digging out the grass stalks, he stuffed some into his mouth, and threw the rest to Fei-Bai. He looked deep into the mountain, thought for a while, and said to Fei-Bai, "You wait for me here, I will go in and find something." "Master, no, brother, why are you going into the mountains?" Fei-Bai got up hurriedly, dissuading him. "Let's move forward quickly, I'm really hungry." Fei-Bai suppressed the last sentence the voice said. But this still made Chi-Heiran stare at him, and said, "I'll go in and look for wild fruits, you just lie here and wait for me." How dare Fei-Bai let Chi-Heiran go in alone? If the eldest young master finds out about this, won't his skin be peeled off? But in the end he still succumbed to Chi-Heiran's fierce eyes. Chi-Heiran went to look for it in the mountains, and came out after about half an hour, pocketing some wild fruits with his clothes. But the wild fruit was sour and astringent. The more he ate it, the hungrier he became. Fei-Bai couldn't eat any more after eating 2, he rubbed his stomach and thought, he might as well not eat it. Chi-Heiran stuffed one into his mouth with one hand, while glaring at Fei-Bai secretly. Fei-Bai could only continue to eat. Chi-Heiran once heard Mu Yangling talk about the tragic life of the refugees. This wild fruit does not seem to fill his stomach, but if he eats too much, his stomach will feel full. At least there is still a little nutrition, and it can replenish water. At least people can't starve to death, so grass stalks and wild fruits are the things that the fleeing victims will choose. Chi-Heiran has the feeling that he is being targeted by someone, but he doesn't believe it. He has done so much, and the other party will still doubt his identity. There are more than 40,000 people, including old and young, which shows that the other party is kind-hearted. At least he can't bear to see those old, weak, sick, and disabled just starve to death. To a certain extent, he is also a weak person, right? Well, he is only 15 years old this year. Chi-Heiran walked forward for a while. When there was a sudden noise in the grass, he and Fei-Bai seemed to be taken aback, staring blankly at the grass with wide-eyed eyes. The 2 adults came out from behind the grass, saw the 2 of them with a putchy laugh. He said, "You 2 brats, it's a good thing we're not wild boars. Otherwise, if you're as dumb as you are, why wouldn't you be beaten by wild boars?" Chi-Heiran stared at them nervously, swallowed his saliva, and said, We have nothing to eat." As soon as the other party heard what he said, his face changed. "Someone robbed you of food? Even robbing 2.5 grown children, it's really inhuman." The other squinted his eyes to look at Chi-Heiran and Fei-Bai, and asked, "Your accent is not from Tongchuan Prefecture, where are you from?" Fei-Bai's tears were about to flow down. He wiped his eyes and said, "We are from Xinyuan Mansion, uncle. If you don't rob us, then, can you give us something to eat?" Fei Bai is much better at emotional performance than Chi Heiran. After all, he was originally a servant, and Chi Heiran is far inferior to others in the point of observing words and expressions. The squinting uncle immediately took out a piece of sesame seed cake from his pocket, and handed it to Fei Bai. Fei Bai's eyes lit up, and immediately tore most of the sesame seed cake to Chi Heiran. Chi Heiran frowned, took it anyway, and stuffed it into his mouth slowly. The uncle asked with a smile, "You are from Xingyuan Mansion? Then why did you come here?" It's okay if he didn't ask, but when he asked, Fei Bai could only temporarily stop eating, and said with tears streaming down his face, "My father and mother heard that the price of grain in Tongchuan Prefecture is high, so they collected a lot of corn from our village. I plan to take it and sell it to make some money. Who knows that our car was robbed by a group of people just after we reached Jianzhou. My father protected us and escaped, and he was hacked, so we took some pieces with us. Silver, but all the things we bought were robbed. We can only go to Xingyuan Mansion. Fortunately my mother didn't come out with us this time." Fei Bai has practiced this passage many times, and now he has memorized it fluently. The two ask some more about his family's situation in Xingyuan Mansion, and Fei Bai used the situation of Mu's family all the way. In addition, he followed Chi Heiran, and he also went to the fields. When he talked about planting corn, he was very sensible, which made the two uncles envious. He said, "Your Xingyuan Mansion has corn seeds given by General Qi. Although there is a severe drought this year, there is still a way to survive." When boasting about his young master, Fei Bai was not at all clumsy, and said gratefully, "My father also said that if it weren't for the seeds sent by General Qi this year, our family would not be able to survive. If it is confiscated, it would be good if the wheat can keep the seeds." There were tears in the eyes of the two uncles, and they said with hatred, "It's all this damn court." At the beginning, General Qi gave most of the seeds to the emperor, just because he wanted the emperor to distribute them to the people. If you swallow it privately, if you are a king, you don't think about the people, but only care about your own interests, and the country will not be a country. Fei Bai's eyes widened, even Chi Heiran was stunned. Two ordinary-looking uncles actually have such insight. The two uncles thought they had frightened the two children, wiped away their tears and said, "Forget it, what are you talking about? Fortunately, we have a celestial master descending to save us, two little brothers. Why don't you come with us?" Tongchuan. Although the mansion and Xingyuan Mansion are bordering each other, it takes a long time to walk, and you have nothing to eat, and the road is chaotic, so why not rest here for now, and wait until the road is peaceful before going on? Fei Bai looked at them vigilantly. "You won't drag us to eat, will you?" The two uncles laughed loudly and said, "You two are so thin that you can have a few mouthfuls of meat. Don't worry, we don't eat people." "Then, where do you get something to eat?" Fei Bai asked after swallowing. The two uncles looked at the two children with pity, nodded and said, "Yes, I can't guarantee that I will be full, but I won't be hungry." Fei Bai heaved a sigh of relief, pulled Chi Heiran a bit, and said, "Then let's go, we have strength and can work." The two uncles smiled and nodded, and took Fei Bai and Chi Heiran away. On the way, an uncle looked at Chi Heiran and asked Fei Bai, "Why doesn't your brother like to talk?" Fei Bai's eyes were red again, and he said in a depressed mood, "At that time, my father pushed me, and when he saw my brother was entangled, he went back to save him, threw himself on him, and with one knife, just, beat my brother after that. I don't like to talk much anymore." His father died to save himself, and his temperament changed a lot. The two uncles nodded secretly. Chi Heiran rolled his eyes in his heart. This is not what was agreed before. Forget it, let Fei Bai play freely. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 304. The two uncles who brought Chi Heiran and the others in were named Shizu and Yuanxing. Although they didn't say anything, Chi Heiran discovered that Shizu and Yuanxing should have been patrolling before. No matter who, but Yuan Xing would make a gesture wherever he went, although it was not obvious, it still did not escape his eyes. Chi Heiren's eyes dimmed. It seemed that they had indeed found the right place. The person was hiding on the mountain outside Zayahua City, but it was very strange. Tongchuan Mansion also sent people in to search for it before. Why didn't they find any trace? Yuan Xing took Chi Heiren to the deep mountain with 7 turns and 8 turns, and then the two saw a huge monster built in the valley. Yes, it was a huge monster. From their point of view, they can overlook the entire valley, saying that this is a city. Chi Heiren also believes that the houses underneath are all built of stones, and there is a city wall around the outside, which is also made of stones. From here, you can see that there are people in the city. Activity. Fei Bai also opened his mouth wide in shock, and then his heart trembled. He felt that it was over, the master had thrown himself into a trap. How could they escape from such a city? Fei Bai couldn't help but secretly scolded the magistrate of Zayahua. He didn't even know that a city was built in the mountains. Chi Heiren's eyes darkened, and he thought quickly in his heart. This is definitely the rhythm of rebellion. Could it be that he miscalculated from the beginning? But who would rebel and bring along the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled? Chi Heiren followed the two down the mountain calmly, but Fei Bai stared wide-eyed, stammering and unable to speak. Shizu laughed and patted him on the shoulder. How is it? Are you scared? Let's go, I'll take you in. Since you're here, you don't have to worry about running out of food in the future. Among other things, here, as long as you are willing to work, you will be able to eat enough. Yuan Xing looked at Chi Heiren. Chi Heiren's expressionless face was also full of surprise. Looking around, Yuan Xing felt relieved and took the two of them into register. Although Chi Heiren was 15 years old, he was still classified as a minor, so he was sent to a group of young and old, while Fei Bai was arranged to live among young people who were about his age. Even if Fei Bai said that Chi Heiren would be 16 next year, Yuan Xing did not agree to let him go, because wherever he lived, he had to do a lot of work, and the Celestial Master had very strict requirements on this. Chi Heiren was very satisfied with this arrangement. Among a group of young and old, he quickly blended in and got the news very quickly. Then, Chi Heiren almost lost his composure and jumped up. This valley that Chi Heiren considered to be a city was nothing more than a mining and smelting field, where silver ore was mined and silver ore was smelted. Chi Heiren felt that he had really shot himself in the foot with the rock, and this time he really underestimated the enemy. He looked at the sky with some grief and indignation. Fan Zijin also looked at God with some grief and indignation, staring at Chi Heiren's personal soldiers who came to deliver the letter, and said, "Why don't your lords arrange it yourself?" The soldier shrank his neck and said in a low voice, "Our master originally wanted to arrange it himself, but he was suddenly transferred to rehabilitate him. Isn't there no time?" Fan Zijin snorted coldly, looked at the letter on the table, gritted his teeth, and finally waved, "Go away, I understand." The soldiers hurriedly bowed and said, "The little one will leave." Fan Zijin picked up the letter on the table, pondered for a while, and finally went to the cattle farm that Chi Heiren had chosen for Mu Yangling to make some arrangements. If the soldiers hadn't come over, he wouldn't have known that Chi Heiren planned to give this land to Mu Yangling. Last time Chi Heiren asked him to find the magistrate of Hanzhong Prefecture, he thought that he planned to use this land to expand the racecourse who knew it was Mu Yangling's birthday present. Why didn't he get this treatment on his birthday? Every time he celebrates his birthday, Chi Heiren just finds something to fool him. He didn't pay much attention to his big cousin's birthday, and thought he would be like that all his life. Who knows that he doesn't care about birthday gifts? It depends on who it is. Although Fan Zijin was thinking about it, she still did her best to arrange it according to Chi Heiren's request. When Mu Yangling came to Hanzhong Mansion again, she led her over to see the cattle farm that had been built, and said, "This is Heiren's farm. A birthday present for you." Mu Yangling widened his eyes and said, "It's been 5 days since my birthday." Fan Zijian snorted, opened his eyes and said, "Nonsense, of course I know, but I was discussing business with others before and forgot about it, and you didn't come to Hanshong Mansion, so you stayed until now." The actual situation is that Qi Heiran wanted to give Mu Yangling a piece of land directly, which is not far from his horse farm, but because he couldn't personally send it to Mu Yangling, he planned to give it to Mu Yangling in guilt. The house was built for Mu Yangling. After all, she wanted to raise cattle, so she needed a cowshed and utility room. After Fan Zijian received Qi Heiran's letter, he worked overtime to get it for him, and finally built 20 cows' heads and 3 stone houses for Mu Yangling today. Because he was in a hurry, Fan Zijian overpaid a lot of wages, and even the materials were stolen from others. Mu Yangling didn't expect Qi Heiran to give her such a big gift, so he froze on the spot for a while, not knowing what to say. Fan Zijian didn't bother her, and directly handed over the land deed of the cattle farm to her. "Hauran's heart, you can continue." Fan Zijian turned around to leave, walked 2 steps and then stopped, without turning his head, said, "I understand Heiran's thoughts, and you should understand too, don't let him down." Mu Yangling frowned, watching Fan Zijian go away, while she sat on the grass and propped her chin to look at the enclosed grassland. Qi Heiran is very generous, probably because this is a grassland, so he encloses nearly 300 acres of land for her in one go, but even if the land is worthless, the price of 300 acres is not low. For Qi Heiran's birthday, what she gave him were all ordinary little things, the value of which definitely did not exceed 20 taels. She also knows that Qi Heiran cares about her, she is not blind, and Qi Heiran's temper has become more and more serious this year, so she can naturally sense it. But first of all, he was only 15, and she was only 12. This age made her not think too long. Secondly, the family backgrounds of the 2 families are too different. Her father is a soldier under his command. If all of them are lost, he is almost a soldier under his father's command. Mu Yangling never believed that Cinderella in reality could live happily with the prince, but she believed in the happiness of a well-matched family. Don't talk about the family, just talk about the individual. Mu Yangling also feels that she and Qi Heiran are not worthy. She has a bad temper, and Qi Heiran has an even bigger temper. The 2 of them have quarreled quite a lot in the past 2 years, there have been fights, which can also be called sparring. In terms of ability, although she was a soldier and went to a military academy in her previous life, she can fight alone, and she can give some advice if she helps with scout training, but when it comes to leading troops to fight, Mu Yangling, I feel that I am far inferior to Qi Heiran, who has commanded several battles and been on the battlefield. The most important thing is that Qi Heiran obviously intends to go to the end of the general road, but she is obviously going to planting and animal husbandry. She will grow wheat, rice, rabbits, cattle, and even raising sheep. She couldn't imagine what it would be like when the 2 of them were together. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 305. But since Qi Heiran is not suitable, what kind of person is suitable for her? Mu Yangling thought about it for a long time but couldn't figure it out, and finally decided to let nature take its course. Forget it, there must be a way for the car to reach the mountain. Maybe Qi Ziyuan can let Qi Heiran rest his mind without her refusing. But Qi Heiran's birthday gift this time is too big. What gift will she have to pay for her next birthday? Mu Yangling got a headache, but at this moment Qi Heiran looked at Yuan Hui in front of him blankly. "Master, if this 25 or 6-year-old monk can be regarded as a master." Yuan Hui looked at Qi Heiran gently, and said, "Young master, your land is wide and square and the sky is full. You are a sign of wealth and honor. It is said that you would not end up here. Well, the father's relationship is weak, but the brotherhood is deep. The son has a lot of love, great luck. Yuan Hui's eyes sparkled, he looked Chi Heiran up and down, and finally came to a conclusion. Young master must not have fallen into this kind of situation. He asked suspiciously, "Can I have a look at your palmistry?" Chi Heiran twitched the corner of his mouth, saying that he would not fall into this situation. How could he not guess that he came in lurking? Anyway, the person had already come in, so Chi Heiran simply stretched out his hand to show him. Yuan Hui looked at his hands contentedly, and said happily, "Master, you have a good hand. Although he doesn't have the appearance of Wen Ji, he has the sign of Marquis Wu. If you join the army, you will definitely become a great general." Yuan Hui hesitated for a moment, but still asked, "Young master, do you have any other brothers? Not the one who came with you?" Chi Heiran looked at him meaningfully, and said, "I still have a big brother." Yuan Hui heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, he did not make a mistake. He looked at the young man in front of him in confusion. Should he take this opportunity to curry favor with him? As soon as the thought came to her, Yuan Hui quickly spurned herself. How can a monk be slavish and obsequious? Yuan Hui puffed out her chest, showing that she has a lot of backbone. Chi Heiran was about to say something when the door was pushed open vigorously. A figure like a black tower walked in quickly, saw Chi Heiran standing in front of Yuan Hui, frowned and asked, "Who are you?" Chi Heiran saw the guard in his eyes. Chi Heiran took a step back and bowed his head and said, "I came to deliver clothes to the Celestial Master, and the Celestial Master said to count a divination for me to see how my future luck will be." "Oh," Haida narrowed his eyes to look at him, and asked slowly, "What did the Master say that day?" Yuan Hui frowned, but still didn't say anything. Chi Heiran didn't raise his head, and replied, "The Heavenly Master said that I will become a rich man in the future under my elder brother's glory." Chi Heiran raised his head and showed his white teeth. With shining eyes, he said, "From now on, you don't have to worry about being hungry anymore." Haida laughed loudly, patted Chi Heiran's shoulder with his big hand and said, "Good luck. Now you don't need to be exposed to your elder brother's glory, and you don't need to be hungry. It's all right, go down, and I'll call you if something happens." Chi Heiran stepped back, and when he closed the door, he couldn't help but slow down his steps, only to hear the warning from the black tower in the room, "Master Tian, it's better not to summon outsiders. It turns out that the Celestial Master is not free." Chi Heiran thought about it. The people in the city seemed to be very convinced of the Celestial Master, so did they know that the Celestial Master was controlled? Seeing Chi Heiran come back, Fei Bai heaved a sigh of relief, hurriedly pulled him to a secluded place, and said in a low voice, "My lord, I have inquired, the people here are not only listening to the Master of Heaven, but also to Tang Jing. Tang Jing is the tall one who looks like the Black Tower. I heard that he used to be in the silver mine. Lord, this place is too dangerous. There are nearly 8,000 young and middle-aged people. Let's find a way to get out." Fei Bai said happily, "Master agrees." Chi Heiran nodded, "But we have to take out the people here, at least these 8,000 young adults." Fei Bai stared blankly at Chi Heiran. Is this a dream, or is it a dream? Fei Bai almost went crazy. There were only two of them. Chi Heiran used facts to prove that he was not dreaming. Yuan Hui was controlled by Tang Jing. Although he was smiling, it didn't mean he was willing to be treated as a puppet. How long could Tang Jing let Yuan Hui become the supreme god of the city? The contradiction between the two is already obvious. If Yuan Hui does nothing, the only thing waiting for him is ascension, which is the same as the ascension of Buddha. So Chi Heiran always approached Yuan Hui when he was out, and told him that if he wanted to be free, he had to cooperate with him. Yuan Hui agreed without any hesitation, and Chi Heiran, who had prepared a lot of excuses, didn't realize it for a while, but Yuan Hui said as if he had seen through him, "I knew that someone would come to rescue me and these 40,000 people in the future." in the midst of water and fire, and you are the brother of the Son of Heaven, there is nothing wrong with following you. Chi-Heiran went crazy after being stunned. The Son of Heaven is definitely not what he thought. He and his eldest brother were dedicated to serving the imperial court, and they did nothing but die for Dezhou. Chi-Heiran stared at Yuan Hui, wondering if he would end up with this person after he left. Yuan Hui seemed to know what Chi-Heiran was thinking, and said directly, "Don't worry, my lord, I will definitely not tell anyone about this matter, except your elder brother." Chi-Heiran took a deep breath and said, "If you are not afraid of death, go ahead and talk about it. Even if my elder brother has a good temper, he will not spare you." Yuan Hui said firmly, "I will definitely find a time when he won't kill me. Of course, if you can tell your brother before me, I will be more happy. Then you will die faster." Chi-Heiran swallowed the words, and said, "You are ready to come, we will only take the 8,000 young men out, and come back to pick up these people after they are cleaned up." Yuan Hui nodded. She didn't seem to worry about how Chi-Heiran would deal with them at all. She just looked at the starry sky worriedly and said, "The sky is about to change, but the emperor doesn't know the danger yet, alas." Chi-Heiran thought, if he was handed over to the imperial court, he wondered what kind of crime the emperor would convict Yuan Hui. "You robbed so many grain depots, isn't it because you said these things to Tang Jing?" Yuan Hui's eyes were a little sad. Everyone has a dominance in their hearts, but they don't know how many people will die to achieve a dominance. In the past, Tang Jing was very loyal and kind to his brothers. Although his methods were a bit harsh, they were never just for no reason. Bullying ordinary people, I didn't expect some words to have such a big impact on him. Then you still say. Yuan Hui looked into Chi-Heiran's eyes even more sadly, "But I just can't help it, sometimes I want to cut off this tongue, but I can't do it," the master said. "I will die in this mouth one day. I've been waiting for the one who killed me." Chi-Heiran opened his mouth wide. He felt that he probably met a lunatic, but this lunatic was praised as a celestial master, and everyone listened to him. Chi-Heiran scratched his head, decided not to waste his brain, and said directly, "Then get ready, don't worry, as long as they don't resist, we will definitely not kill people." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 306. The Celestial Master said that tomorrow is a very auspicious day, so Tang Jing decided to take the Nanjiang granary tomorrow. It was a small granary, so this time there was no need to dispatch all of them. Abandoning the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled, he would definitely suggest that everyone follow, but this time he didn't mention it. When Tang Jing looked at him suspiciously, Yuan Hui smiled slightly and said, "Nanjiang is not far from here, we can go back and forth in one day. Even if you want to abandon them, you don't have enough time." Tang Jing's face was a little ugly. She stretched out her hand to hold his neck, and asked sinisterly, "Can't you turn off your mind-reading ability? Has no one warned you that one day you will die from this?" Yuan Hui shook her head. "My master said that I died from this mouth in the end." Tang Jing's face twisted, and she gritted her teeth and said, "What's the difference? Sometimes I really want to pull out your tongue." Yuan Hui sighed and said, "I also really want you to pull it out, but I know you are reluctant, so I can only continue to suffer in this world." Yuan Hui knew that he was different from other people since he was a child. After he was picked up by his master, the brothers in the temple liked him very much. But after he could speak, the brothers gradually disliked him. He knew it was all because of his mouth. It's a disaster, but he just can't control it. It is really painful to say what others ask you, and you have to say it, and you can't tell lies. So he had no choice but to leave the temple that had raised him for nearly 20 years, but the situation was even worse after he came out. He really hoped that someone would pull out his tongue. After pulling out his tongue, he should be able to live a stable life. But no one is willing to do it, because they need his mouth. Of course, he can't do it himself, He is afraid of pain, very afraid. Yuan Hui took a pitiful look at Tang Jing. Fortunately, Tang Jing didn't know him well enough. If his seniors would definitely ask before going out, whether there would be any disaster on their way and whether they could get through it. If Tang Jing asked him this question, he felt that his mouth would tell him that he would be attacked on the road, and he might not be able to break out. Of course, Tang Jing didn't ask, so he didn't say anything, so Chi Heiran's soldiers successfully surrounded the 8,000 people who had just walked out of the mountain. This time it was General Lu Kan and Mu Shi who led the troops together. 15,000 people surrounded 8,000 people, and the knives and guns in their hands were coldly aimed at the 8,000 people in the middle. Tang Jing's complexion was pale. Their men only had hoes and sticks, but he didn't want to let it go, so he shouted, "Brothers, let's rush out." 8,000 people clamored, and the situation suddenly changed. Everyone nervously clenched the weapons in their hands, and a Buddha's call suddenly sounded. Amitabha. It was just a soft sound, but everyone couldn't help but relax. Tang Jing looked at Yuan Hui bitterly. He knew Yuan Hui's ability. If they had such a big disaster, how could he not figure it out? Yuan Hui took a step forward, turned around and said to the 8,000 youths, "This is everyone's destination." Among them, the younger one cried out on the spot, and shouted helplessly, "Tianchi, I don't want to die, I don't want to die." Many people have red eyes. Yuan Hui smiled slightly, looked at them lovingly, and said softly, "Who said you would die? Silly boy, I mean that your destiny is to be incorporated into the army, not to hide from the officers and soldiers and live a life without seeing the sun." Everyone was obviously taken aback. General Lu took the opportunity to ask the soldiers to shout, "Put down your weapons and don't kill." "Yuan Hui," Tang Jing roared angrily, "you betrayed me." Yuan Hui shook his head, and said compassionately, "I have never been loyal to you. Why did you say you betrayed me? My original intention was just to hope that these innocent people could survive. Now that the Imperial Army has been found, you take them to fight to the death. How long do you think they can live without weapons and food supplies? General Qi has promised me that as long as they don't resist, they won't be killed. Those who are willing to join the army can follow him. At least they won't starve and freeze in the future. Yes, just take the travel expenses and go back to your hometown. Tang Jing, once he succeeds, all his bones will be destroyed, but Junqing is obtained in exchange for suffering." Tang Jing glared, "Now that the Emperor of the Great Zhou is sitting on it, don't we have lost our lives? Look outside, how many people died of starvation on the road. What is the Emperor of the Great Zhou doing? Sitting in the Tangshan Palace beauty. Why? Why?" Yuan Hui shook his head and sighed, "Although you have ambitions, you have no ambitions, and your mind is too narrow. When you are in power, you are not as good as the Emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty. This may be true, but saying such things in front of a narrow-minded person is undoubtedly courting death." So Tang Jing roared angrily, and directly stabbed Yuan Hui's heart with a sword. Chi Heiran grabbed the wooden stick from the person beside him, blocked his sword, and immediately fought with Tang Jing. Although Tang Jing is an adult with great strength and has done a lot of fighting, but in terms of fighting with others, he is really not as good as Chi Heiran, who finds someone to practice with him every day, so he was defeated by Chi Heiran in just 12 moves. A stick hit his arm, the sword in his hand fell, a stick hit his leg, and the man involuntarily knelt down. General Lu Shen immediately asked someone to tie him up and gag him by the way. The heads were all caught, and the remaining people were persuaded by their celestial masters, and everyone threw away their weapons. Chi Heiran asked people to count, and at the same time led people to bring out the rest of the city. At this time, Chi Heiran realized that Yuan Hui's mouth was so powerful. Originally, they were worried that the 40,000 people would mutiny, but they only had 15,000 people here. 10,000 people. But the celestial master just stood on the stage and said a few words in compassion, and the people below broke down in tears and expressed that they would cherish life and would never fight against the army of the imperial court. According to statistics, there are 23,000 people who want to leave, including more than 2,000 young and middle-aged people. Most of them are with their families, and they will leave after taking the food they have allocated. Of course, Chi-Heiran couldn't let 23,000 people go at once. What if they get together again halfway? Therefore, he only released some people after a while, and the rest of the people had to be recruited, so they needed to spend some time here. And Yuan Hui had already been escorted back to Tongchuan Mansion by Chi-Heiran, who asked Mu Shi to persuade him to surrender the 1,800 strong men in custody. General Lu Shen looked at the group of old and weak, and his brows were almost wrinkled. He persuaded Chi-Heiran earnestly, "Little general, let's forget about those young and strong. Why are those old and weak women and children taken in? Our army can't afford it, there are so many people. Although their corn harvest in Xieying is not bad this year, there are also many soldiers. These old and weak women and children cannot go to the battlefield. Isn't it a waste of food? The Reborn Wife is Farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 307. Chi-Heiran has always remembered what Mu Yangling said: "What is lacking in this era is not land and food, but labor, advanced farming techniques and their seeds." Although these people are old and young, and there are many women mixed in, but when they are pulled into the field, they are all good farmers. So Chi-Heiran said with a smile, "There are so many lands left in the Hanshong mansion, let them plant them, and they will be able to support themselves next year. But there is a lot of food for one winter, and this is about 12,000 people," General Lu said anxiously. "Little general, you should report this matter to the general. Although the land in Hanshong mansion is deserted, but it's not under our Xieying name. When the barbarians entered the customs, many people in Hanshong prefecture fled to the south, and those lands were left unused. Later, the dignitaries of the kingdom of Jin used them to raise sheep and horses. Although it has been growing, the speed is very slow, so not much is allocated. But if they can't be separated, the Yamen will not give it to Xieying." Chi-Heiran already had an idea in his mind: "Bring them back, we will divide half of Hanshong mansion, and the remaining half will go to military households." After a pause, he continued, "The other half refers to 10,000 people. 6,000 young and strong will all join the military households." General Lu opened his mouth wide. "Will Fang's Hifu agree?" Fang's Hifu is the prefect of Hanshong prefecture, and he has only been here for a year. Chi-Heiran chuckled, "He will definitely agree. The Hanshong mansion only increased by more than 300 households in a year, and I will give him 6,000 people at once. Where can he ask for this achievement? Besides, the corn seeds are still in our hands." Although Qi Ziyuan sent corn seeds to the local area, the quantity was not large, and more were still in the hands of their military. Therefore, Fang's Hifu had to establish a good relationship with Xieying if he wanted the seeds. You must know that in the annual performance assessment, the growth of population and food output are the two most important assessments. After hearing Chi-Heiran's words, General Lu was completely relieved, and he looked a lot better towards the more than 10,000 disaster victims, at least not too much of a loss. General Lu Shen was worried about losing money now, but when he brought them back to Hanshong mansion, he realized that not only did they not lose money, but they seemed to be making money. Qi Ziyuan is recruiting soldiers, and he has to pay for recruiting soldiers, commonly known as settlement expenses, at least 2 taels of silver per person. But when he saw the 6,000 strong men Chi-Heiran brought back, Qi Ziyuan immediately ordered someone to take over the stall, and stopped recruiting. Just kidding, he saved 12,000 taels of silver all at once. As for the old and weak women and children brought back, Qi Ziyuan didn't dislike them, and directly dragged them to Hanshong mansion to talk with Fang's Hifu. Fang's Hifu was overjoyed to see so many people, so he immediately offered a high price of 8,000 people. Of course, As a price, he could pay 3 times the price for the military land in Xieying. Chi Ziyuan originally wanted to agree, but Chi Heiran, who happened to be watching the battle, blinked quickly. Chi Ziyuan changed his words and shook his head and said, 8,000 people are too many, at most 5,000. Of course we can't separate the family, even 5,010 cents. Fang's Hifa was so angry that his beard twitched. Those who fled with their families, there were at most 4 or 5 people in a family. Under the base of 1,000, what is a fraction of 4 or 5 people? Fang's Hifa felt that Chi Ziyuan was too stingy and didn't have the air of a general. The elders in those families are all in their 60s, and the younger ones are only 5 or 6 years old. They don't even have any young adults. What are you doing in Xieying? Fang's Hifa said displeasedly. They can't go to the battlefield. Planting the land, Chi Ziyuan sighed. My lord has also seen that this year the border is unstable, and all the soldiers in the army have to be trained, but now they have to be responsible for all the food, grass, and military pay, so they can't be planted for what they eat. So they have to farm the land. Although this group of people are old and young, they are all planed out of the ground. The children can go to the field when they are 6 years old. These labors come in exchange for you. Fang's Hifa frowned, but it's almost winter now, food and housing for these people is a problem. Do you have enough food in Xieying? Chi Ziyuan's eyes lit up. That's why I have to ask my lord for help. Don't, Fang's Hifa waved his hand and said, I'm also worried here. Although the situation in Hanshong Mansion is better than that of Tongchuan Mansion, there are many people who can't eat and need relief. Speaking of this, Fang's Hifa rolling his eyes, he said, speaking of which, I think of the prairie sheep business in our Hanshong prefecture. Last year, a girl bought mutton in Hanshong prefecture, which saved many people from hunger and cold. I heard that girl is people under General Qi. Chi Ziyuan knew that he was talking about Mu Yangling. Mu Yangling's mutton business was indeed very big last year. At first it was only 400 or 500 taels of silver, then it was 1,000 taels, and then it was 4,000 taels, or even tens of thousands of taels. The mutton business didn't stop until spring sowing. Because there are few people in Hanshong prefecture, and there are not many places that can be cultivated, the pasture seeds that were sown in the fields before will grow vigorously in the spring, and those people who have tasted the sweetness will raise sheep after farming, anyway. Now the imperial court does not restrict them from farming or raising sheep like the Jin dynasty. Who doesn't like an extra income? Are you talking about Aling? That child has a bigger heart now, and he is trying to raise cattle. No, he has already bought a piece of land in Hanshong Mansion and plans to build a cattle farm. Chi Ziyuan shook his head and said, but that piece of land with only 300 acres, how many cows can you raise? Fang's Hifa was taken aback. Why does Miss Mu like these barbarians things so much? First they were sheep, now they are cows. Fang's Hifa frowned slightly. Although he hoped that Mu Yangling could buy more sheep to help the people under his rule survive another winter, it did not mean that he would support raising sheep and cattle. If the population increases in the future, and everyone continues to do this, and no one grows food, won't it shake the foundation of the country? Master Fang misunderstood. Chi Heiran, who was on the side, hurriedly explained, a ling does not raise cows that can be milked and slaughtered on the grassland, but buffalo or cattle that we cultivate. Seeing that the elder brother was also surprised, she said, she feels that the income of planting is too low now. One is because of the seeds, the other is because of the planting technology, and the third is because all the labor is bound to the land, and the efficiency of farming is too low. The method is meticulous and meticulous. Hearing Chi Heiran talk about farming, Fang's Hifa couldn't help but sit up straight, and asked with bright eyes, and then? The technology of seeds and planting can't be improved for a while, it has to be done step by step, but this labor has a clear direction. If every household has a farmable cow. Chi Heiran didn't say anything about the prefect. He and Chi Ziyuan also understood. Now the plowing and ridge opening in the field are all manpower, sometimes 2 people are needed to pull the plow, plus the person who supports the plow, that is to say, 3 laborers are bound at once, but it is different with cattle. A cow can make 2 labors, or even more. After all, the stamina of cattle is much stronger than that of humans. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 308. Fang's Hifa walked back and forth in the study excitedly, and asked Chi Heiran with piercing eyes, but even if this cow is raised, everyone has no money to buy it. Ling said she could rent it to them. Fang's Hifa clapped his hands, and threw out good words as if he didn't want money. Good man, General Chi, you have a good man under your command. Chi Ziyuan twitched his lips, and said, Master Fang, Ling only has 300 acres of land. Even if he wants to raise it, he can't raise much. It doesn't matter, isn't it the land? I'll allocate it to her, Fang's Hifa said grandly, but after the cows are bred, they must be rented to our government office for 100. Don't worry, I will not lower the price. I will pay as much as I give to others, and good civilians and military households have the same leasehold rights, so you can't favor military households just because she is a military household. Chi Ziyuan twitched the corner of his mouth, and said, You have to ask Ling about this, but I can help you deal with the 100 of the government office. Seeing that Fang's Hifa was still not satisfied, Chi Ziyuan smiled and said, Since Mr. Fang can find out that Ling is one of my subordinates, then he should know that the child has always been soft-hearted, and it is the worst thing to see anyone suffer. When Fang's Hifa heard it, he immediately expressed his feelings. He took office last autumn, and when he arrived, he was faced with all kinds of businesses waiting for prosperity. Although the business in Hanzhong Prefecture was booming, the people outside the city lived a different life. Although Fang's Hifu is not a clean and honest official, he also has a heart of compassion, but Chi Ziyuan removed all the things in the treasury before he came. Of course, Chi Ziyuan said that it was moved when the Jin soldiers retreated, but he believed it is a ghost that Jin Bing was able to move all the rice in the granary when he was running for his life. Of course, he could find no proof. If you can't find evidence, you can't ask Chi Ziyuan for food. You can only force the merchants who come and go to pay more tax money or give him more bribes, and he will use the money to buy food from the merchants to help the people. But there is only so much money, and there are 12 counties and 32 villages and towns under the rule of Hanzhong Mansion. How could it be possible to save them? When Fang's Hifa felt that he could only throw away the black hat, Mu Yangling came to collect the sheep. Of course, he didn't find out at first, but when he found out, Mu Yangling's business had already reached 10,000 taels. The people under the Hanzhong Mansion survived that winter safely, so the Fang's Hifa really wanted to establish a long-term cooperative relationship with Mu Yangling, but when they sent someone to look for it, they found that he was not a good citizen, but a military household, and he was also related to Chi Ziyuan's brother. That's right, Fang's Hifa's plan was temporarily suppressed. At that time, he didn't understand Chi Ziyuan, and he instinctively thought that Mu Yangling was the brother of the Chi family who was doing this. After all, how could a military household get so much money? Since Chi Ziyuan intends to do good deeds without leaving his name, there is no need for him to rush to thank Dade. But a year has passed, and he has more or less seen some ways to do it. It is the business of the little girl alone, so Fang's Hifu intends to continue to cooperate with others, and hopes that Mu Yangling will continue to work hard to buy sheep for a year. She was a girl who was easy to soften her heart, and she was so ruthless before that she lowered the price to 1 or 2 or 5 yuan, but after seeing the lives of those common people, she actually raised the price. If it were him, Fang's Hifa felt that he would definitely take the opportunity to lower the price below 1 or 2 yuan, so Fang's Hifu, who is not noble enough, likes Mu Yangling, who is noble. Hearing Qi Ziyuan's answer, Fang Zhifu nodded and thought to himself, if not, then he would ask those ordinary people dressed in rags to go to the cattle farm to beg her, and I don't believe she can harden her heart and not rent. Qi Heiran was more concerned about how many acres of land the prefect Fang planned to give to Mu Yangling. The prefect Fang twitched his lips and said, "Little general, I didn't say give it away. The land is rented out." Qi Heiran was not happy. How much would it cost? All Ling's money was used to buy calves. If he still spent the money to rent land, how many cows would he save? Mr. Fang just said that he supports farming a lot. I look at it and say it verbally, if you really support it, you should give her the land directly. Fang Zhifu said sternly, this is not acceptable. What if Miss Mu turns around and sells the land or uses it for other purposes? Qi Ziyuan hurriedly smiled and said peaceably, it's simple. Raising cattle is not something that can be done overnight. I don't think it's better than this. Master Fang gave Aling free use of the land for 20 years, but she can only use these lands. Raising cattle, once it is changed to another way, the Yamen can take it back. What do you think? Fang Zhifu bowed his head in thought. Qi Ziyuan smiled and said, my lord, how many households in Hanshong Mansion have cattle? Once this cattle farm is built, it will benefit the common people, and it will be a great thing in the future. How many people in this world are willing to spend this energy, money, and time to do it, this issue? Qi Heiran sighed, don't we know the importance of cattle to farming? But what was the situation of cattle 10 years ago? It is still the same now. Fang Zhifu gritted his teeth, asked someone to bring a map, looked at the grassland, closed his eyes and drew a circle, looked straight at Qi Ziyuan and said, General Qi, I'm giving you this face, it's $500 in total. Acres of land, she can use it for 20 years. Qi Ziyuan didn't expect Fang Zhifu to be so generous. Hearing this, he laughed, got up and said, I'll be the guarantor. Fang Zhifu breathed a sigh of relief, and then saw the roster still on the side, and was a little annoyed. They came to talk about labor, so why did he pay 500 acres of land while talking about it? Fang Zhifu immediately shouted that he was fooled. General Qi, your brothers have dragged me in. No, you have to give me 6,000 people, 5,000 people are too few. Qi Ziyuan nodded without thinking, okay, I'll give you 6,000 people, the roster is here, all the family members are connected with lines, adults only need to mark it with a blue pen. Fang Zhifu, who was worried that Qi Ziyuan would not agree, suddenly regretted it, and he should have mentioned 6,500 people. Naturally, land should be allocated when someone is selected. Not only must a part of the land be allocated to Qi Ziyuan as military land, but also those newcomers who have entered the Hanshong Mansion will also be allocated land. Under Fang Zhifu's rule, 6,002 people were added at once, and he was very happy. Even though a large piece of land was allocated, he didn't feel bad. Anyway, those lands were reserved and no one cultivated them. In 2 years, those lands were completely desolate. Qi Ziyuan and Qi Heiran walked out of the Fang Mansion together. Qi Ziyuan was very happy with a smile on his face. The prefect of Fang is a good official because he sees the slippery ones. Brother, I'm going to tell Aling the good news. I'll accompany her to the Yamen to go through the formalities tomorrow, lest people in the Yamen bully her for being young. Qi Ziyuan glanced at his younger brother, and seeing that he was not thinking about it, he patted his head and said, I'm talking about business with you, I'll go to Ling's place in the afternoon. Qi Ziyuan asked seriously, I'm asking you, that Tang Jing, what's going on with Yuan Hui? The Reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 309. Feng Yu, as the bandit leader of a faction, was cut off by Qi Heiran, because he was in a hurry, and the county magistrate of Li County was the witness and supervision. Although he did not report to the Ministry of Punishment for judgment, it complied with the procedures. Zhangzhong, another leader of the anti-army, was escorted back to the capital for trial, which was more in line with the procedure. But what happened to Tang Jing and Yuan Hui? Although those 40,000 people didn't hurt anyone, they did rob the imperial court's granary. Although the law does not punish them, most of them were let go, and the remaining half were also taken by them, but as bandit leaders, they will be escorted to Beijing no matter what. But Tang Jing was killed on the way back to Xingzhou Mansion for fleeing, and Yuan Hui became a coerced monk. Did Tang Jing die because of fleeing? I can hide it from other people, but I can't hide it from Qi Ziyuan. Moreover, after Yuan Hui arrived in Xingzhou Mansion, he lived directly in the general's mansion. My younger brother has never believed in gods and Buddhas. When did he treat the monk so politely? Up. Qi Heiran choked. He couldn't say that Yuan Hui said that you might become the emperor in the future, and Tang Jing knew too much, so he just silenced it, right? He scratched his head, and finally felt that this matter was too big, and it was beyond his ability to handle it, so he temporarily decided to go back to Xingzhou Mansion today, and come to Hanshong Mansion tomorrow to find Mu Yangling. Qi Heiran got on his horse and said, "Brother, let's talk as we walk." Qi Ziyuan frowned, and waved his hands to the back. The soldiers retreated immediately, and the two brothers rode side by side. After leaving the city gate and on the main road, Qi Heiran gradually restrained the horse and let it walk slowly. The soldiers behind knew that the masters had something important to say, so they all reined in their horses and followed from a distance, as long as the two of them were within sight. Qi Ziyuan didn't expect his younger brother to be so cautious, so he laughed and scolded, "Okay, isn't it just a bandit leader? Hurry up and say it." Qi Heiran said with a serious expression, "Brother, you know that I have never believed in strange powers and gods, but Yuan Hui is very evil. He seems to be able to read people's faces and palms. When I sneaked in..." Qi Heiran explained the situation again, and seeing that the elder brother also looked pale, he said, "Elder brother, either he has met me before and knows about our family's situation, or he can really figure it out." Qi Ziyuan didn't believe this kind of thing. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he said, "A person who deceives people with evil words, you should have dealt with him the same way you dealt with Tang Jing." Qi Heiran felt a strange feeling in his heart, and whispered, "Brother, I don't think he lied." Qi Ziyuan was taken aback, and looked at his younger brother seriously. Qi Heiran nodded equally seriously, "Brother, I don't feel any malice in him." Qi Ziyuan became silent now. He knew that his younger brother's intuition had always been accurate, and he had a particularly obvious perception of danger and human emotions. Maybe it's because he lost his mother since he was a child, but in short, he is more sensitive than ordinary people. When he was only 2 years old, he knew that his nurse didn't like him, even though she never abused him, never said bad words in front of him, and she didn't show any indifference on the face, just by feeling she knew that the nurse didn't like him. It was also because of this that he found out that his younger brother's wet nurse was arranged by that woman, although their connection was very secret. At that time, he thought it was because the child was sensitive and pure-hearted, so his likes and dislikes towards people were more obvious, but although his younger brother's talent gradually weakened with age, it was always there, especially the perception of danger was very sensitive. When Heiran said this, Qi Ziyuan couldn't help but become more serious, "But it's only on the surface that he doesn't mean anything to you, but it doesn't prove that what he said is true. Heiran, although Dezhou is weak, the situation is obviously getting better. We and Jin Kingdom Xixia are only in a small area of friction now. How could it be, so forget about it and be your little general honestly. The next time you have done a great service in rehabilitating the case, the elder brother will formally ask the imperial court to reward you." Qi Heiran thought about it, and felt that it was too early to think about it now. Even if the elder brother really became the emperor, it might be decades later, and he might be old, because at present, The situation of Dezhou is indeed true. Good. Even though there are many natural disasters this year, only a small number of areas are in chaos. Under the suppression of the Imperial Army, peace should soon be restored. Qi Ziyuan stabilized his younger brother, but the first step after returning to the mansion was to see Yuan Hui. His face was a little cold. He felt that such a person should not be kept, lest he instigate his younger brother to make mistakes that he should not have made. Yuan Hui's assertion caused him no ripples, not because Qi Ziyuan didn't have ambitions, but because even if the world was going to be chaotic, it wouldn't be his turn. Okay. In front of him was General Yuan, who commanded an army of 200,000, as well as the Zhu family and the Xiao family. Any one of them could overwhelm Qi Ziyuan. Regardless of his family background or existing power, Qi Ziyuan could barely stand in the middle position. So he had a hunch that Yuan Hui coaxed his younger brother to save his life. Qi Ziyuan pushed open the door with a bang, and met a pair of eyes that were neither sad nor happy. He was stunned for a moment. Yuan Hui saw him, smiled slightly, stood up quietly, put his palms together slightly, and said, "Benefactor Qi, Yuan Hui has been waiting for you for a long time." Qi Ziyuan frowned tightly. "It's my brother you coaxed." Yuan Hui smiled slightly, looked straight at Qi Ziyuan, looked him up and down after a while, nodded and said, "Benefactor Qi, you are right." Qi Ziyuan's face turned darker, and he grinned, "Do you dare to lie to me in front of me?" Of course, the benefactor's loyalty can be learned, but if the sky is about to perish, what can be done by a benefactor as a general? Qi Ziyuan frowned. Yuan Hui looked at the sky outside with compassion, and sighed, "This year's drought and flood are just the beginning, and the next few years will only become more and more chaotic. General, you should be prepared. You guys are considered destiny. Don't you all say that the secrets of the heavens cannot be leaked, and if leaked, you will lose your life. How come you don't mind at all?" The sadness in Yuan Hui's eyes flashed, "Because I am different." Qi Ziyuan didn't see any difference in him, but when he touched the scabbard, he hesitated for a moment, but he didn't pull it out. He snorted coldly and said, "Master, you'd better stop saying these words, others are not as compassionate as I am." Yuan Hui couldn't agree to him, so she could only say, "As long as others don't ask me who the next emperor is." Qi Ziyuan's heart skipped a beat, and he strode out. "The next emperor? I am now 42 years old, how long can I live? If he is the next one, wouldn't the world be in chaos that day? No, no, I said I don't believe it." Although Qi Ziyuan didn't want to believe it, his heart was still confused. He locked himself in the study and thought hard. On the other hand, Qi Heiran was refreshed after telling the story, and he was not entangled at all. He came to find Yuan Hui the next day and asked him to accompany him to Hanshong Mansion. "Come on, come with me to see the feng shui of a cattle farm. The reborn wife is farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 310. Mu Yangling spent a lot of effort to buy 100 calves and came back, and now they have just rushed to the cattle farm to let them get used to it gradually, so she now lives and eats in the cattle farm. Fortunately, Zhongwu and Zhonglu can share a lot of burdens for her now. As long as the operation of the cattle farm is on track, she can hand over all the affairs of Hanshong Mansion to Zhongwu and Zhonglu, and she will still go back to Chinggutun. Zhongwu and Zhonglu dragged 2 carts of pasture grass from outside. "Miss, should this grass be dried in the sun, or should they be eaten directly? Since the nearest village is 20 miles away, the pastures in their area are very abundant. As long as Qi Heiran's horses don't cross the border to nibble on their pastures, there will be more than enough pastures until next spring. But no matter how lush the pasture is, it will wither and melt into the soil to return to the earth after winter, so they need to cut more pasture, dry it and store it for the cattle to eat in winter." Mu Yangling looked up and said, "Let's dry it, drive the calves out in a while, and let them eat on the grassland by themselves." But this calf has only been here for 2 days, will it run away? Zhonglu worried. Because these cows are still young, the oldest is only 4 months old, and the youngest is only 2 months old. It is very restless to leave the cow to a strange place. It's okay, open them separately, put a batch in the morning and a batch in the afternoon, you can mow the pasture while watching them, and throw some hay for them to eat, otherwise they will all eat hay, no matter how hard we mow, it won't be enough for them. Fill your belly. Seeing that winter is coming, it is better to harvest as much pasture as possible. When Mu Yangling was thinking whether to go back and hire someone to help with the work, Chi Heiran came with Yuan Hui. Yuan Hui looked left and right for a while, nodded and said, "The feng shui of this cattle farm is very good, I don't have anything to point out." Seeing Mu Yangling startled slightly, Yuan Hui nodded slightly at her without speaking. Mu Yangling also looked at Yuan Hui's smooth head curiously for a while, pulled Chi Heiran away, and asked in a low voice, "Why did you bring all the monks here? He is now my elder brother's staff member. He knows feng shui, so I brought him here." Mu Yangling's eyes were full of stars, and he asked doubtfully, "Aren't Taoists who can read feng shui? Monks can also?" Chi Heiran was taken aback for a moment, but also somewhat confused. He hesitated and said, "Aren't Taoist priests and monks similar? Should they be related?" Mu Yangling looked at Chi Heiran speechlessly, changed the subject and said, "Then what did he see?" Chi Heiran said with a smile, "He said that the feng shui of your cattle farm is very good." "That's good, as long as you don't need to change it." Mu Yangling didn't care much about it, and asked about the labor force. "I was just about to invite some people to help me with the work. Didn't you bring a group of people back? Have you made any arrangements?" Chi Heiran said happily, "I have left it to Zijin, but he is receiving Shensan these days, and he stayed up all night last night to arrange for them. You don't have to pay them, just give them a bite to eat." Mu Yangling also knows that labor is cheap now, but she doesn't want to take advantage of it. Although the wages are not high, they will not be lower than the market price. Chi Heiran was very happy, and decided to tell Fan Zijin the good news when he went back. The 6,000 young men were sent by him to build their houses, and there were 12,000 people left. No, there are only 6,000 people now. The 6,000 people were not easy to arrange. They were all old people, children, women, and a lot of half-grown children. He had to hand them over to Fan Zijin to arrange. But Fan Zijin was also busy. This year was the most critical period for his career advancement. During this period of time, he was so busy that he missed a lot of his homework, which made Chi Ziyuan scold him. But even so, Fan Zijin still stayed up late to make a plan for him to arrange people. Mu Yangling seems to be quite good at this. With her help, Zijin should be able to relax a lot. Chi Heiran conveyed Fang Zifu's attention and care to her cattle farm by the way. Mu Yangling heard that he had gained 500 acres of land all of a sudden, so he looked to the northwest of the pasture in dumbfounded, pointed at the large grassland and said, "Master Fang really said that all the land belongs to me?" Chi Heiran nodded with a smile, "Yes, I will go to the yamen with you later to go through the formalities." Mu Yangling pondered, "The 100 calves are not enough, we can raise another 400, and there are people at your place. Let's go to the yamen first, and then find Fan Zijin." Yuan Hui has been following the two of them without saying a word, causing Chi Heiran to look at him several times. Mu Yangling followed his gaze. Although he felt a little weird, he didn't ask any questions. Instead, he recruited Zhonglu to let them keep an eye on the cattle farm, and she went out to do errands. When Mu Yangling and the others came out of the yamen, it was already noon. Chi Heiran said with a smile, "Come on, let's go to Zijin's for dinner." Poor Fan Zijin was buried in a pile of documents. This year, he couldn't repay Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling the money he earned from diced rabbit meat and cured rabbit meat. All the money was invested in other businesses. Now his business involved tea, silk, and porcelain. If it wasn't for the lack of money, he would also like to get involved in the grain business. But this is enough for him to be busy. After all, he is only 15 years old, and he has to wipe Chi-Heiren's butt from time to time, so he has missed a lot of homework in the past 6 months. Seeing Chi-Heiren and Mu Yangling leisurely approaching, he gritted his teeth immediately. Except for restaurants, every business he does has the shares of these two people, but why is he the only one involved? Fan Zijian felt unbalanced, so he looked at the documents on the table, wondering if he handed these things over to the two of them, and whether the two of them would wipe out his hard-earned family fortune. Chi-Heiren was already sitting on the chair carelessly, and said, Zijin, we're here to find you for dinner. After speaking, he directly ordered Yan Mo, who was serving them tea and water, to call a table waiting for the banquet. Yan Mo looked at Fan Zijian. Fan Zijian rubbed his forehead, waved his hand and said, Go, it will be placed in this room. Seeing Fan Zijian's headache, Chi-Heiren frowned and said, Money can't be earned, and we don't have a lot of money to spend now. Didn't I just move a lot of money back 2 days ago? Fan Zijian glanced at Yuan Hui and glared at him. Can this be said casually? Chi-Heiren waved his hand and said, This matter can be hidden from others but not from him. He is the one who took us to empty the money. Fan Zijian choked suddenly. Wouldn't that mean that the money was handed over to the court? Now that you say it like this, all fools know that the money was embezzled by them. Yuan Hui didn't seem to hear it. She sat there with slightly lowered brows, sometimes frowning. Chi-Heiren looked at him twice more. He always felt that Yuan Hui was very strange today. Fan Zijian met Yuan Hui only once, and Chi-Heiren didn't tell him what Yuan Hui said, so he was satisfied when he saw that Yuan Hui didn't respond. He seemed to know the current affairs, but he didn't know that Yuan Hui was not listening to them at all. Say what? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 311. Fan Zijian took out the roster that Chi-Heiren gave him, and said, There are too many people, I can't arrange them at all. I have arranged those women and some old people in the workshop, but the number of people is not too many. The workshop can eat 3,000 people. Fan Zijian looked at Chi-Heiren and Mu Yangling and said, This is still in the autumn when the rabbits are fat and the number of slaughters is large, and the orders suddenly increase. Otherwise, I can't even arrange 2,000 people. Those young and strong will dig stones to build houses. Let's try to let everyone live in before the temperature plummets. Fan Zijian originally wanted to say when the first snow falls, but he thought that there were not a few drops of rain this year, let alone snow. All those half-children also went to the mountain to help carry stones, but there are still more than 2,700 people idle there. All of them are children under the age of 12, there are boys and girls, and one of them is under the age of 8. 1952. This shows how big the age gap they brought back this time is. Some of them were orphans, but most of them fled with their mothers or grandparents. As for their fathers, they all left home and left. There are also some mothers who walk with their fathers, but most mothers are reluctant to part with their children, so the mothers take their children and flee with their father-in-law and mother-in-law. Because these people are old and weak, they walk together on the road. Fortunately, they meet Yuan Hui, who only broke free from the control of the silver mine after she got married. Yuan Hui has a compassionate heart, let's say so. Anyway, he took these people to the silver mine. Aling, how many people can you arrange? Fan Zijian turned to look at Mu Yangling. These people are idle all winter. Even if they can provide them with food, clothes, and various daily necessities will cost money. The army cannot provide them one by one, so he arranges them into workshops. He saves costs. You can also get more capital to survive. Mu Yangling calculated in his mind, and said, "Give me all the people, the cattle farm needs to be expanded, and the number of cow sheds to be built will also increase. I also need some young and strong men there. As for the 12-year-old children, they can be mowed grass, this is not tiring." Fan Zijian immediately said, "Then there are more than 600 elderly people over the age of 52, you should also arrange it." Mu Yangling was taken aback, "Didn't you arrange them into the workshop?" Fan Zijian said with a headache, "Since your cattle farm needs them, then take them away. I have to let people watch them not to steal the rabbit meat when they are in the workshop. You can't imagine that they want to steal a piece of rabbit meat. How many ways did Ro come up with?" Mu Yangling frowned slightly, "Since when have you been so kind? If you don't restrain yourself, the workers in the workshop may follow suit in the future. They are old and thick-skinned. No matter what I punish them, they all accept it with a smile. In the workshop, the fine for theft is 3 times the silver, but what is valuable on them? We give them food and clothing. Yes, they made it clear that they have only one life, so can I still kill them?" A cold light flashed in Chi Heiran's eyes, and he said with a sneer, "If you are used to them, just order them directly. If anyone dares to take things outside again, he will be kicked out of the workshop. He and his family will never be hired, and they will be ranked last when assigning houses." Chi Heiran thinks that he treats them very well. Although he can't guarantee that every meal will be dry, he can eat 70% full. Isn't it better than they escaped before? Give them to me and let them mow the pasture. They can't even steal the pasture, can they? Mu Yangling thought she wouldn't mind if she really wanted to steal it. As a result, over 3,000 people poured into Mu Yangling's cattle farm at once, and a few soldiers brought up several large baskets. The sickles inside were ordered by Mu Yangling before, and some were discovered yesterday. I bought it, and finally made up so much. Looking at the chaotic crowd, Mu Yangling said nothing. The children were a little apprehensive, but the more than 600 old people who were temporarily kicked out of the workshop were very resistant. They did a good job in the workshop, but they were suddenly sent to this place. The indoors became outdoors, and the fragrance was delicious. The rabbit meat turned into an edible pasture, which made their complexions hard to get better. Mu Yangling asked someone to lift a chair, and she sat there with an agricultural book to read. The children were still chattering about this uneasy, but when Mu Yangling ignored them, they gradually calmed down. But those old people became even more angry and spoke louder and louder. Seeing that it was almost noon, Mu Yangling put away his books, turned around and said to Zhonglu who was standing behind him, let's go back to eat." Mu Yangling lifted the chair and went back. 3,000 people suddenly widened their eyes to see Mu Yangling ignore them and walk away. Those children who got this job with great difficulty were in a hurry. They vaguely knew that they were rejected because they were too noisy. Some children glared at the old people, "You are all bad people, bad people." Some old people's faces were blue and red. Mu Yangling, Zhongwu, and Zhonglu went back and heated up the biscuits to eat. Zhongwu looked outside worriedly and said in a low voice, "Miss, if they get impulsive." Mu Yangling smiled and said, "There is no food in the cattle farm except grass. What are they impulsive about? Because they just moved here. Chi Heiran's racecourse is next door, so they eat at his place for dinner, and plan to move in after these people leave, so now there is only an empty 3-entry house and a row of cattle. There is nothing to eat in a shed for 100 calves." Mu Yangling finished eating the biscuits in his hand in twos and took a sip of water before getting up and saying, "Okay, I'll go see if they are honest." Mu Yangling felt sorry for them, but she didn't feel so soft-hearted that she was bullied. She knew that they were pitiful, and that some of their actions were forced by life, but that didn't mean she would accept it. Mu Yangling stood in front of the crowd, and the 3,000 people gradually quieted down. Mu Yangling looked at the old people on the left and sneered, "What? Stop talking. The old people blushed, and Mu Yangling's face turned cold. He looked at them with stern eyes, and said, I respect you as old people, but you also respect me as my boss. I promise Jiharan to help you settle down, don't your gratitude, but you have to do well for me, otherwise, I don't have Fanzijan's good nature. Remember, if I can't do well, I don't keep people in this cattle farm, just go wherever they come from. Where are you going? If you make me anxious, I will hand you all over to Jiharan. Jiharan has a worse temper than me. Although there are few people in the army who are over 50 years old, it is not impossible. If I remember correctly, you are all military households now, right? The faces of the old people turned pale, and the resentment on their faces disappeared immediately. Yes, they are now military households, and Jiharan's life and death are in the hands of Jiharan, which really annoyed him. What if he dragged them into the barracks? Their old bones really don't even know how to die. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 312. Seeing that they were being honest, Mu Yangling said, it's late today, so we won't start work. It's because you made troubles that delayed the work. I won't punish you, but I won't give you today's rations and wages. To prevent you from making similar mistakes in the future, I will explain the rules today. First, don't make noise or procrastinate when queuing up, and obey orders after queuing up. Mu Yangling then divided their specific tasks. All children under the age of 6 stay here to dry the pasture brought back. This is the easiest job, and the wages are calculated by bundle. Children over the age of 6 and under the age of 12 go to mow the pasture. 10 people form a group, and the wages are calculated based on the results of the group. The children over the age of 12 are divided into 3 parts. One part manages the children under the age of 6 and helps them move the grass off the cart, one part goes to harvest the pasture and keep accounts, and the last part works with the children under the age of 55. The old man went to build a cowshed together. Because building a cowshed is more difficult, the wages are also the highest. Of course, this is a free application, and Mu Yangling is not reluctant, but unexpectedly, all those who meet the conditions are the first to go to this job. Mu Yangling asked Zhongwu to pay attention to screening, not to put those thin, sick children in. As for the elderly over the age of 55, they went to cut the pasture with the children. Mu Yangling chose another 20 old women with clean fingers and fairly neat clothes to be in charge of everyone's meals. There are 3,000 people, all of them are in groups of 10, and 10 groups are a team. The captain only finds the team leader, and the team leader only manages the team members. Zhongwu and Zhonglu are in charge of managing them. Mu Yangling asked them to go back today after giving orders, and when they came tomorrow, they would get the sickle, and specially told the 20 old women who were in charge of the food, because time was tight, they would stay here at night. Of course, they could also choose to go back, but you must come to the cattle farm at Moku, 5 o'clock. The 20 old ladies hesitated and said, Boss, it's fine for breakfast at the end of the morning, 9 o'clock. Even if we come at the same time as them, we can still make it in time. Mu Yangling glanced at them and said, I have 3 meals a day here. Meals are at Majang, 6 o'clock. Go to work, have dinner at Yushi, 17 o'clock, and then the soldiers will escort you back, and you will go to work the next day. Not only the 20 women, but the eyes of everyone who heard this lit up. They can eat 3 meals? Although they felt that this girl was too particular, they would not object at all. Anyway, she said that she would pay for the food, and the old man, who was still a little bit resentful, immediately calmed down. The hardships here are a bit bitter, at least they can eat 3 meals, and maybe they can save some food for future rations. After all, although the army said that they would be responsible for their food, no one knew how much relief food they could distribute. It's better to eat vigorously while you have something to eat. Mu Yangling looked down and saw those children standing there with their necks hunched, Her heart ached, but she suppressed her concern and just waved them back. It was the end of autumn at this time, and she herself was wearing a pair of jackets, and although the children were wearing cotton jackets, they were all tattered and leaked everywhere. Winter in the north always comes early, and in another 10 days or so, they will definitely not be able to go out like this. If they don't see it, it's fine. If they see it, Mu Yangling can't ignore it no matter what. So that night, Mu Yangling took out the account book to calculate how much money she had left, and only after doing the calculation did she find out that she still had a lot of money. Last year, she traded sheep with Chin Butcher and the others, and finally made a total of 46,000 taels of silver. Although this year she built 2 rabbit sheds in one go and bought calves, it seems that she still has a lot of money left. The rabbit shed almost only invested money without return. Fan Zijin invested all the proceeds in the business. He made a lot of money, but turned around and invested it again. They have no money, so they can only continue to make money and then invest in it to expand their business step by step. So the money Mu Yangling has now was earned from selling sheep last year. It is estimated that buying 500 calves will cost about 2,000 taels, but considering that there are so many free laborers now, and their barracks construction is not far from here, it should not be difficult to hire them in the future, so should we buy more? Simply feed 1,000 heads in one breath. It's not that Mu Yangling has a big appetite, but that she feels that the plan to raise cattle is imminent, but where can she buy so many calves? It's okay to try it with Chin Butcher, he will definitely come to sell sheep this year, so let him do business twice, at worst, she will give you a higher price. Mu Yangling wrote down a number on the paper. In this way, she would have about 38,000 taels left in her hand. Mu Yangling immediately drew out 5,000 taels of silver, thinking that she could go to find it after the supervisor tomorrow. Fan Zijin talked about buying some cotton and cloth and came back to make some clothes for the children. Mu Yangling didn't have many senses for old people and adults, but he was very soft-hearted towards children, so he made up his mind and called Zhang Lu, "You go back tomorrow morning to pick up Miss Biao, and ask her to take the sandalwood box I gave her. Bring all the 3 masters who can raise cattle that we found not long ago. Our cattle farm has expanded, these 3 masters alone will definitely not work, we have to find 5 more, and find a doctor who can look at livestock diseases to sit in town." Zhang Lu was speechless. "Miss, isn't there a doctor at the racecourse next door? Then we can't go to others for everything, we have to find one for our cattle farm." "Miss, didn't you say you only have 500 heads? Isn't 8 people too many?" Zhang Wu asked. "I changed my mind, I want to raise 1,000 head. Zhang Wu and Zhang Lu looked at Mu Yangling in astonishment, but they didn't expect the master to change his order from day to day. "But we only have 800 mu of land, which is too little. Can we raise 1,000 head? Whose land is 800 acres away?" Mu Yangling asked. "Public. The public's belongs to everyone." "Who says the grass growing on it can't be cut?" Mu Yangling asked Zhang Wu and Zhang Lu with a smile. Zhang Wu and Zhang Lu shook their heads again and again. "Yes, who said the grass above cannot be mowed? The rivers, roads, and mountains in this world are all owned by the public. Don't they still walk, fetch water, and enter the mountains? Then, why are we still buying land?" Zhang Lu felt that they had spent too much money, and shouted, "We shouldn't have spent this money in the first place. It's so stupid." Zhang Wu knocked on his younger brother, and said, "If we don't buy land, where will our cowshed be built? And how big is the 800-acre land? As long as you don't go inside and look, no one will know what's going on inside of us. How, not to mention the land outside, the land here is sparsely populated, as long as there is no accident, no one will go to those places for several years, we will mow the grass as soon as we go, don't you go around and everyone knows."